Okay, shall we start? So, for the next 3 weeks, the module will be delivered by me. The focus will be on the neural networks. I just want to start with some uh, remarks so we are on the same page. So, I think you know that the module is not about how to use AI, but more about what is the AI about and how and why it is works. The main goal that I want to achieve is the next generation AI developer, not users. So that's the key focus of the modules. So we will look at some theoretical frameworks of neural networks, and we will look at this theory from lectures, and you will apply those theory into practice in our labs. We have 2 weeks labs. And you will see those algorithms that you learn in these lectures in practice. Um, the material I delivered will be assessed by one coursework and be part of an examination. Like I said, there will be 3 weeks lectures and two labs, and there will be one revision sessions. The coursework will be 30% towards the overall module mark. My coursework will be released next week, and the hand-in date after the Easter break. I just want to note these 2 points. Um, Make sure that when you submit your coursework, you need to submit. It happens often, and even until now, uh, you upload, but you did not submit, and I cannot mark your coursework if you did not submit. The other thing happened last year was, um, yes, you can resubmit your coursework if you want to change it, but there was an issue because when you resubmit, you have to email to this email, right? Your file. And somehow, MATLAB files is considered dangerous by Microsoft. And so it goes to quarantine. And it did not goes to the mailbox. So just make sure when you resubmit, please CC yourself so you know whether it's delivered or not, and also CC me. So when it CC you, you know, right? If you do not receive, it means something is blocking the message. And then CC me so I know if you actually resubmit. But what I will mark is what uh, will be resubmit by the system to Moodle. Okay. The rubric will also be released next week, the same time, with the detail of the coursework. The coursework material mainly will be the presentation slide and the laboratory exercises. Make sure you check the laboratory exercises because they are complement to the material here. Not all material that given in the lectures are in this lecture. Some of them are also in the lab exercises, yeah. And you will only use MATLAB. Some textbook that I use and really good. Okay, now let's start with the content. We start with artificial neurons. What I wish you to get at the end of the lecture is to understand um, what is the inspiration of neural networks and how it works. And we will look at in detail the architecture of artificial neural network, and we will see different type of neural network architectures, and we will work a simple neural network by hand. So you will get a hands-on experience. How can you design a very simple neural network just behind the envelope calculation? Okay, I think everyone knows what are this logo, right? I think you use this often, especially your coursework. Without telling you the brand, what this engine actually inside are a combination of deep learning and reinforced learning. We will look at the deep learning. Reinforced learning will follow after neural networks. So a good combination, right? We will look at in the next 3 weeks the enabling technology for deep learning. These are perceptron model, linear programming, backpropagation error correction algorithm, adaptive linear element, multi-layer feed-forward artificial networks. And this the only thing that we can cover in the next 3 weeks. Of course, there are more and more things that we will see here. If we look at the progression of neural network technology by the year, compared to the number of neurons, the first time it was invented back in 58, we only have 1 neuron, but year by year, we can see almost doubling every 2.5 years. And if we look at the increase of number of neurons in the different, you can see here, different type of reported neural networks, it has been increases compared to what is in biology from worms to humans. So if we just try to extrapolate those in 2056, maybe we can achieve the same number of neuron connections as human. But wait, actually, just 3 years ago, ChatGPT announced the GPT-3 number of neuron about 70 to 80 billion neurons. And last year, GPT-4, 2 years ago, sorry, GPT-4 with almost 100 billion number of neurons. And those increase has been mainly enabled by compute power. But as you see, GPT or OpenAI GPT has not been perfect. You have seen still a lot of problems compared to what human capable of. So there are still work to be done to improve this technology. So that's what I wish from you, not only to become a user, but look at how can you improve this so your work may push it above it. Now let's see what is neural network. The first time neuron was biological neuron was studied by this in this picture by Santiago, which got the Nobel Prize in Psychology. If we look at the detail, this impression, you can see we have the nucleus and we have the dendrites, and nerve signal will propagate through the axons, and you can see it will communicate with other neurons through the synapses. So as you can see, this kind of neurons, not only one, we have many of them, and they are connected. The connection that actually create computation power, and that's what we will look at. Some interesting material you can watch. Basically, all of these are interesting documentary that you can watch on your own. But there are interesting work on memory and the relation with learning. Now, I just want to simplify from this complicated biological neuron illustration to this kind of illustration. What do we have is a connection between neurons, and the neuron will communicate from one to the other. The flow of the signal is given by the arrow. What we have schematically, some input, and we have the weight that mimic the connections in the synapses of neurons, and the weight with the input will lead to the activation state X, and we will apply some nonlinear functions to get S. Let's repeat again. We have an input signal. The input signal denoted by A. And we have weights. The weights is applied on the signal. For example, here a signal from neuron 1 to neuron J. So the weight is weight 1J. And then we have the activation state. The activation state is computed by the multiplication of the input with the weight. And then we sum for all the incoming signal A from I to N. And then we apply a nonlinear activation functions phi on X so that we get the output signal S. Typically, we will use this form because this is more compact and easier to manipulate mathematically. So now I just want to stress the notation that we use over the module. All the vector will be column vector. I use capital to denote either vector or matrix. Vector with a single underline, matrix with a double underline. All the entries uses lowercase, but the matrix denoted or the vector denoted by the uppercase. This is used to denote they are all real numbers and they have n number of entries. The same here for matrix, the dimension of the matrix, number of row n, number of row m. I will use indexing and I will consistently use I, J, L to denote the subscript, and I will use K as a superscript for iteration because we will iterate our weights and our inputs. Now, let's go and see the neuron activation state in detail. Neuron activation state given by this formula. And they are actually an inner product between the weight and the input. What is actually this formula means? This leads, it means actually the similarity between the two factors. So if we look at factor A and factor W, when we perform the inner product, we take a projection between the two factor, and we can see this is the length of the projection is given by the inner product. Now, if we compare the two matrix, two factor, B and W, if we perform inner product between B and W, what we get is this one, the projection between the two factor. So we can see the length of this is longer than this, right? What we can say is factor A is more similar than factor B. So what you are doing here is actually to look at the degree of matching between the input signal and the weight factor. So all neural networks, when you perform this operation to compute the activation states, what you look is always what is the degree of matching between your input and the weight. The bias. Bias is this bit. It is just a convenience that introduced to allow threshold moving. We will look at that later. By changing the bias weight, we can move our threshold. We do that by just fixing the input here by 1, plug it to the formula for the activation state. What we get as follows. Usually, most textbooks use this notation. So we will use the same notation. Now the neuron activation functions. For those of you that already been using neural networks, you may have already familiar with changing different activation functions. But what is this actually activation functions? The purpose is to transform your activation state to the output in a nonlinear fashion. There are many activation functions. You may have heard this, some of them, for example, like sigmoid, hyperbolic tangent, and ReLU. They are actually rectified linear unit, and so on. We will look at some of the standard activation functions from the binary threshold. I just put here on top different notation, but they actually of the same thing. Some people call it binary neurons, some people call it perceptron, some people call it threshold logic neuron. So I don't want you to get confused if those terms are used interchangeably in textbooks. So they're referring to the same thing. The threshold logic neuron uses these activation functions. Basically, anything Any activation state larger than 0 is 1. Activation function less than 0 equal to 0. Now, if we look at the impact of the bias, if we increase the bias, we shift the threshold when this transition happens by the amount of the bias. And if we reduce, we shift it to the right. We will see this, the impact of shifting threshold in our application when we want to make a discrimination in our neural networks. So just remember at the moment, with tuning the bias, we can shift our threshold when we say yes and when we say no. And we will see concretely later how that actually means. And then we can generalize the activation functions by creating a ramp. So basically, if we look at these conditions, anything less than 0 for the activation state, we have 0. And then for a certain region between 0 and xm, where xm is given by the ramping constant alpha, the value, the output ramping up and reach 1 for activation state anything larger and equal to xm. For specific case of ramping constant 0.5 is shown as such. Again, if we modify the bias, the same principle happen. We move the threshold. If the bias positive, we move threshold to the left. If we apply negative threshold, we shift the threshold to the right. We can also adjust the ramping constant, and you can see that the rate is become steeper. This is a prelude to the most used activation functions, which is sigmoid. Most of neural network library now use sigmoid inside their engine. And the functions is given by this formula. If we plot this formula, what we see is this profile for different lambda, the ramping constant. And you can see that this function is monotonic, means that for any activation state x, you can see they are always going to one direction. If you increase x, the value of this function also increases, and if you decrease the value of x, the value also decreases. That means it is monotonic. And the second characteristic of this function that this function is continuous, meaning that this function can be differentiable. I just want to embed those keywords, differentiable, because that will relate to our last lecture in 3 weeks when we want to differentiate this activation function to train a deep neural network. So I want to introduce you with those terms. We can see the same principle happen if we change the bias. What happens if we have negative bias? It's again shifted to the left. and the same for the positive bias. There are other activation functions. For example, Gaussian. This is the Gaussian activation function for different parameter for different parameter sigma, which control the dispersion of our activation functions. And by changing C parameter, we can shift the peak of these Gaussian functions. This is a specific activation function and is not actually used commonly, but I want to let you know that not all activation function has the same characteristic, especially this one. This one is not monotonic, right? So if you increase x, the value of this function start by increases and can be decreases. So they are non-monotonics. So there are many different type of functions, and why there are many of them? Because there are different type of neurons. Let's work it out by hand. Our simple Makulov-Pitt model, which is what I said before, is the same with the perceptron model, the same with the binary model, the same with threshold logic neuron. Those are the same thing, but just in different terms, but they are the same thing. Now we want to design a threshold logic neuron Makulov-Pitt or threshold logic neurons that can perform a simple NOR gate of two input A1 and A2. This is the truth table of NOR. Every one of you should already aware of this. Can we design such a neuron? Meaning that we need to calculate what is the weight and what is the bias such that we can perform such operation. See, when you want to do design a neural network, what you always do is given an input, given an output, find the appropriate weight. That is the common process that we do, and we try to do it by hand. What actually happened is we try to map our input, which is a binary numbers of 2 dimension, to our output, which is only 1 dimension. If we just do it by hand, we calculate the activation function, the activation state. Remember, this is the formula, right? Now I just do that. A1 times W1, A2 times W2 plus the bias for all these different cases. Applying this is what we get. Now look at what is our goal. This is what we want. And this is our activation state. And remember, this is our activation functions, right? Now, if we want to get one with the activation state for this one, theta, what happens if I just put all theta equal to 0? If I put theta equal 0, we have 0, W2, W1, W1 plus W2. If we apply the nonlinear activation state, activation function, 0, what we have is this. We already reached our goal. But how about this? How about this? What value can we put for W1 and W2 so that if we apply the threshold logic neuron functions, we get 0? The easiest is just by putting -1. What happens if we put -1, -1, -1, -2, -1, -1, so we have -2. That works, right? So what we get is weight 1, weight 2 equal -1 with bias 0. For this particular case, we get what we want for NOR gate. We just try to do it by hand. We have not done it systematically. Yeah. So what we try to do here, just to look at how can we done it, how can we work it by hand for a simple problem, knowing the input, knowing the output, we can actually work it, what is the weight, by hand. This is simple problem, so we can work it by hand. But as we will see, when we have many neurons, we cannot do it by hand. Let's do one more. Now we want to do OR gate. Now when we have OR gate, this is our truth table. So we have a different goal now. I do apply the same formula again for the activation state. Let's look what happened if now instead I use the weight 1, weight 2 equal to 1. I just substitute this to our activation state formula for different case of inputs. This is what we have now. Again, considering that we are developing a threshold logic neuron, we will apply the binary functions. Now, if we want to achieve this goal, what bias should we put? Any suggestions? Okay, some of you said theta 0. But now imagine what happened if I put theta 0 here. If I use theta 0, this x become equal to 0 and it's become 1. So that doesn't work. Any other suggestions? So as you can see, if we want to achieve 0 here, we can look at this, right? The case when it becomes 0 is for negative x. It means that if we use negative value, there is a possibility that we can achieve what we want. Let's say if we use -2. Let's say we use -2. If it is -2, we have for this one 0, okay. For this one become -1. We go to this case, it's 0. So -2 does not work as well. But let's say what happens if we use -1, sorry. So if we use the bias -1, I substitute that to here, we get this. Now applying the threshold logic neuron functions, -1 becomes 0, 0 become 1, 0 become 1, 1 become 1. We get our goal. So we see that by changing the threshold, we can actually tune when is happening. When can we say yes? When can we say no? For particular case that we try to work it by hand, in this case, this particular value for weight and bias works. But you see, when we try to do it together, it's like trial and error. That's not a systematic way. And we will see that there are actually infinitely many solutions that can achieve the same goal. That's what we will see soon. But before that, I just want to show you there are many different kind of neural networks. The simplest kind of neural network based on the flow of the signal is the feed forward. All the signal will be captured by the neuron, and then we calculate the activation state, and then we apply activation function, and then we got output. That's it. But we can have multi-layer architecture where from one layer to another layer. But you can see the signal flow is one direction, from left to right. We can have a feedback architecture where the output goes back, become an input. Some people call it recurrent network. So in artificial neural network book, usually they call it recurrent neural network. And recurrence can happen between layer. So you can see from one layer to another, between neuron in the same layer, or can be between layers. So this one you can see from different neuron in one layer to another neuron in another layer. These are just the terminology used. And you can see that if you combine all of this, you can get infinitely many possible architecture. You can see this is the most, not the most comprehensive, but the typical neural networks that commonly used in most of commercial software packages. In the lecture. So yeah, just 1 second. So the 2 points that I want to stress here, when we have a complex architecture, we can no longer work out the weight by hand. We need some algorithm to solve the weight. We call this, we need to train. We need to train our neural network. And we cannot use our simple backhand calculation anymore. And we will need some algorithm. Those algorithm is called learning algorithms. One thing that I want to stress, you see there are many architecture here. Not only in shape, but in the color. Colors means different activation functions. So you have seen the one with the sigmoid, that is the green. And then you remember with the Gaussian is the kind of this spiking hidden cell, so the one with the triangle. So there are many different type of architecture in terms of the shape, but also in terms of the activation functions. And each of these has its own algorithm, how to train them. And that's why even if you modify a little bit, you need to develop your own algorithm to train your new neural networks. So you can see by even changing the shape, you need to develop a new one. I just want to stress again, this there is a lot of things that can be done here, and we need a lot of engineers that can not only use AI but can develop your own algorithm. If you notice this one, Hopfield network, do anyone realize what is this? So last year physics Nobel Prize is given for Hopfield for his neural networks. So this is his the reason why he got a Nobel Prize. He created this recurrent recurrent networks that is used to design protein and so on. Okay. In the lecture, we will look at this top 3 in the next 3 weeks. Basically, we will look at all these 3 structures. We cannot cover all of those. Okay. A quick summary before a break. What we have looked at in detail is this McCulloch-Pitt neuron. Some people call it binary neuron. Some people call it threshold logic neuron. Some people call it perceptron. And we see that all input will be weighted. Each input will be weighted. And we have bias. And then we see that each connection will be excited if the weight is positive, otherwise is off. We also see that by tuning our bias, we can shift the threshold. So that if we see that if our neuron activation state, so this is X, right? If it's bigger than the negative of this threshold, we have on, otherwise we have off. I just want to stress this negative value because there are some other textbook that use other sign. They use positive sign instead. So I just want to stress those notation. Okay. Before the break, I give you some exercise that you can try at home. So we have 5-minute breaks now. Okay, let's continue. This exercise, please do at home, yeah, just for your homework. It will not be assessed, but good for practice. Okay, now we are continuing to pattern recognition. The main goal of the second part is we would like to use neural network for classification problem. Classification problem is the most common application of neural networks. So that's why we want to see this first. We will apply perceptron to solve linearly discriminant Boolean problem. What is linearly discriminant problem? We will see that. After that, we will see that any neural network is not unique. But any neural network that you make is just one of possible neural network that can possibly do what you want. So this is the 3 things that I want you to get after this lecture. Okay, now why recognitions? Why classifications? This is again inspired by us, by human. We are good as recognizing people, right? We can discriminate people. We can say, oh, you are you. You are what's your name? And we can discriminate. And there are many, many works to study this. For example, mom has been shown can recognize which baby from just from the cry. So poor father, but not as well. Father also can actually recognize the baby's cries just from the cry. But is it only humans or it is inherent to any biological animals? And yes, pigeon has been trained to classify images of breast cancer radiology, basically the X-ray of breast, to separate it between the one with cancer and not. If you go to this website, you can see the video of the pigeon can discriminate. This one has cancer, this one has no cancer. So this is a kind of inherent ability when you have neural networks. Let's see. Can we classify this? I think every one of you know Pokemons. Now try to go to this QR codes. You can try now. Do it now for 2-3 minutes. It's very quickly. Can you find out what is this Pokemon is? Just from the shadow. Okay. I just want to close this first. Okay. Because I want to get the answer. So 1 minute, yeah. Until 55. I'll be waiting for your results. And I've been collecting this result for the last 3-4 years. So I want to see the statistics. Okay, have you finished? Okay, please answer now, quickly. So you will be directed to this page, right? You will be directed to this page. So you can answer it. Okay, everyone finish, yeah? Now I will show you the statistic. Most people answer B. What is B? Okay, let's say the second one. Most people says A. Why do you think some people say A? Huh? No. I want that's what I want to hear. Who said something? Someone says something. That's cool. What do you think? Why? That's bias. No, that's true. Neural network, if you train it wrong, it can lead to bias. So that's the point. I have this option because statistically, Charizard is the most popular Pokemon. That's why I put it. And some people that bias to this Pokemon will answer it that. Now let's see the next one. D. What is D? And D actually the next most popular Pokemon from the old generation, from all this. So again, you can see bias play a very strong role, even to human. In fact, because it's human, you are biased. And E. Oh no. Can you guess why? It's not properly given a proper training materials. So that's again, I want to tell you, if you use neural networks and you train it wrong, you will get rubbish. You give rubbish, you get output rubbish. So some of you that choose E, you've been wrongly trained. You have not maybe watched Pokemon, yeah? Now let's see others. Some of you answer others. Some of you answer Pikachu, Jigglypuff. A black circle, okay. Oh, someone change quickly. Okay, so the interesting one is the Jigglypuff. And that's the right answer. Can anyone knows? So what lesson can you learn from just this image? What kind of message? The same thing is in this image. If you look one thing from different viewpoint, what you can see, you can recognize things better. I use different color here because this is the keyword that we want to look at. Multi-aspect observation and specific thing. And that would lead to a better recognitions. This multi-aspect observations, we call it features. And that's the dimensionality of our observation. If we can look at one thing from many different angles, from different observation, we call it different dimensions of the specific thing, we call this class. So this is our class, what the thing that we want to split, right? What we have different class A, class B, and so on. And that lead to better recognition. Better meaning there is some kind of measures. There is something good, something bad. So it's something that measurable, right? And we will measure things by error or accuracy. We will see that later. Now get to a concrete, realistic problem, weather forecasting, for example. You want to recognize, you want to develop a neural networks that can recognize something is rain or there is a possibility of sunny, but your input is only this multi-dimensional input, right? Again, you want to see our class from many different aspects, from many features, so that we can differentiate our classes. The more features we have, increase the possibility we can get better recognitions. And that's the reason why ChatGPT 3 only have 70 billion, why GPT-4 has 1000 billion. Because if you can have more dimensions, which is these neurons, you can perform your task, any task, in this case, recognition, just become better. That's the goal, right? In neural network, many attempt on making neural network better is by increasing. That is the easiest. But you see, somehow, if you can make a clever algorithm, and we already see that in DeepSeek, it can make things much better in a fraction of the cost, right? So sometimes you need to increase the features to make it better, but there is a big cost involved on that. You need a big compute facilities. Another way, with suitable number of dimension, improve the algorithm, and you can get even better performance in terms of cost sometimes. So those are the trade-off. Okay, back to our problems. We want to do classifications based on observation of many things. We see humidity, temperature, and so on. And then we know, right, if there are certain temperature, certain pressure, certain humidity, we know that it is sunny. But we know that when it is temperature is cold, when it's humidity high, the possibility it going to rain, for example. Let's say we have many observations, and those observation is represented here as a pair of observations and class, right? So you see each one of them is a pair of input and target. We have class 1, sunny, and class 2, rains. Always in neural network, when we want to do classification, what our neural network want to do is get this boundary. That's the job of neural network. They want to find the line that can separate between the two classes. And those line, the green line, is called the decision boundary. Most cases, we just need to do dichotomization, meaning we just need to split two class. If we need to split many classes, those can be expanded from two classes. Okay? In a single line, what neural network need to do is this. Given some data with its classifications, we want to make an accurate decision what happened for some input data that we have never seen before. That's basically forecasting, right? We want to classify things, if we want to predict things. You have seen these examples, and this example is the good one because we can see concretely. For example, we have 3 different flowers here: Iris centosa, Iris versicolors, and Iris virginica. How can we classify the 3 flowers here? We can, based on the width and the length of the petal and the sepal. So this plot only plot two aspects from 4 possibility, right? There will be petal length, petal width, sepal length, sepal width, but I just plot only the petal length and the petal width here for the 3 species of iris flowers. What do we see here? I can easily split Sentosa from the rest, right? I just draw a line. But this is a rather tricky one. Where should I put it? There is no way I can get perfect classifications. There is no way by just a straight line. There will be some error, right? What does it mean? Some problem can be solved by only taking a straight line. We call it linearly separable. Some problem cannot, meaning they are non-linearly separable. For in here, versicolor and virginica, they are non-linearly separable. How do we know that our problem, our classification problem, is linear or not? There are 2 ways. Analytically, rigorously, based on the data we have. The other way is numerically. Rigorously, we will need to understand the concept of convex and non-convex set. Numerically, we will learn it next week. We need to learn what is so-called perceptron learning law. Now we will focus on analytic method first. What is convex sets? What is non-convex sets? This is some example of convex and non-convex sets. Rigorously, mathematically, is this. Let's see what does it mean. Now we have our input space, right? It is our input space. And then I group my input space with some kind of boundary. I call it my set. Now, if I take 2 points represented by vector x and vector y, and this vector x and vector y is inside our set, right? You can see the point pointed by these 2 vectors is inside our set. We can call our set is convex if and only if we take another point given by this vector and all these points will be located also inside the same set. So, okay, let's go back again. Convex set means if we take any point x and y, right, the blue point, and then we find many points given by this vector. Remember again your linear algebra, y plus lambda x min y, meaning vector x plus another vector given by the difference of x and y. So if you have vector x minus y, you have a vector in these directions. But in front of it, you see there is a prefactor lambda, meaning that you times with some numbers. And the numbers says here it can grow from 0 to 1. So let's say if lambda equal to 0, it is equal to y, right? And then if you put lambda something small, it will move to here. If you increase lambda, it will move here. If you increase lambda, it will move here until 1. Now if you put lambda equal 1, y plus x minus y. So it's related to x, right? So you can see these equations basically referring to points growing from point 1, y to point x. Okay, is that clear? So we can apply the same rule here. All points, if we pick any pair x and y anywhere in S, all the red line, all the red points will be inside the set. However, if we look at this, if I pick that x and that y, at some point, this point is no longer belong to the set, so that this set S is not convex. The same thing with this. This set is not convex. Now apply this rule to our iris problem. I draw a line, group my Sentosa. I draw a line to group my versicolor. I draw a line to group my Virginica. You can see this is my convex set, and this is a separable problem. But these two are not disjoint. They are not disjoint. They are overlapping. So that these two sets are not convex. Right? If you see, if you want to draw the boundary, this is need to go like that, right? And that's actually the same shape like before. The convex hull, we say, for Virginica and versicolor, they are not disjoint, so that they are not linearly separable. MATLAB has already developed some functions to draw this line, and you can use this directly, convex hull, to draw the line. Any questions so far? Now, let's look at Boolean parameter space, because most of our problem will involve Boolean parameter. We will say yes, we will say no. So it's important for us to know the rule of Boolean operators. If we have n number of Boolean variable, there will be to the power of n possible combination of parameter space. Meaning this, if we have n equal to, we can have 0, 0, we can have 0, 1, we can have 1, 0, we can have 1, 1. For example, if we have two input, right? You have seen before our truth table, we have 4 different possibilities. The number of possibilities is given by the 2 power of n. For 2 is simple, we only have 4. If we have 3, we have 8, and so on. We can graphically show it our Boolean parameter space in these cubes. We call it the Boolean cubes. 0.00, 0.10, 0.01, 0.11, and it is for the 3D, for 3-dimensional cubes. And how many operations can you do? For example, For n by 2, the number of possible combination is given by this, 2 the power of 2 the power of n. So if we only have 2 input, true, 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 false, false, true, false, false, all the possible combination is 16 basically. And this is the complete table. The important thing here, not all these functions are linearly separable. Some of them are non-linearly separables. We will look at those problems. Let's visit again the non-problems. So this is none. You can see the truth table is unnegated. So anything that was 0 for un now become 1, 1, 1, and 0. It's clear? Now we want to work on the weight for our perceptron. This is our your homework, right? The one that I gave your homework. What we will only see here is its discriminations. I will not solve the weight. You need to work it yourself. We just want to focus on the discrimination lines. What we do again, mapping from Boolean with dimension 2 to the output that is Boolean dimension 1. So mathematically, what happened is you want to map this. 0, 0 become 1, 0, 1 become 1, 1, 0 become 1, 1, 1 become 0. Or in the Boolean cubes, you have this. I want you to take a note on the notation used. Solid bullets for 1. So if I have 0, 0 is 1, 1, 0, the output is 1, 0, 1, the output is 0. When I have 1, 1, the output is 0, so I have a hollow bullets circle. The discrimination lines is this. We can split it, right? By a single line, a single straight line, we can separate between the true and the false. Meaning, again, it means that the problem is linearly separable, right? Now, let's generalize for threshold logic neurons. How do we get the discrimination lines for our neurons? This is our input, right? Remember, the input can be formatted in the matrix, in the vector form. We have this, the bias, and then input 1, input 2, A1, A2. The weight corresponding to this matrix vector input, the weight for the bias given by theta, weight for the first one given by W1, weight for the second one given by W2. Activation state, remember, is weight transpose times A, right? Inner product of these two vectors. We have this. Apply threshold logic neurons for perceptron, meaning that decision boundary happens at 0, right? Things happen, the transition happen when xi equal to 0. Something happened then. So we call that at the separating lines, applying the activation function on the activation state, at the separation line, the output is 0. Exactly at that line. Exactly at that line. I just substitute here. I just substitute here to this. Yeah. And then considering this situation, now if you rearrange A2, right? Now you can just rearrange this mathematically. This going to the left, this is going to the left, everything divided by W2, you got this. Okay? So this is our separation lines. Let's say this term is called the slope. This term is called the intercept. For given any weights, so for any weights, including the bias, we have an orientation, and that orientation will point to the solution that is positive. I know this is a bit wordy, but we will see what does it means. Okay? Just remember, any discrimination lines will have an orientation, and orientation meaning is a vector perpendicular to that orientations and always pointing towards the positive result, towards the positive result, the yes result. Let's say, using the same example, we have the none, the same problem. This is our Boolean cube, right? Remember. I believe you already done that at home later. And the weight is given by this, right? Weight 1 minus 1, weight 2 minus 2, minus 1, and the bias is 1. Going back to the equation that given before, the discrimination function, I substitute this value to this. So what we have is this. Minus 1, minus 1. So we have minus 1. So it's become minus A1. And then 1. And then this one is minus 1. Minus minus become 1. So this is our discrimination function, which equal to A2 equal minus A1 plus 1. Remember the wording that I used before? This is for the specific weight, yeah. For the specific weight, this is the discrimination function. If I draw that line, is this. Basically, it's this line. And this discrimination function does its job. Because everything behind the shadow in the shadow region is 0. Anything here is 1. So if you just pick any point here, random, just pick any point here. If you calculate the activation state, any point, pick any A1, pick any A2, just calculate this, and then what you calculate, and then apply the threshold logic neuron, you will always get at the end 0. And here, everything will be positive. It will be plus 1. And remember what I said, any discrimination functions will have an orientations which factor perpendicular to the discrimination functions, and this orientation will always pointing towards the positive results. So remember, so this is the positive result and we have orientation. I said before, these discrimination functions is specific for our bias, which is -1, -1, sorry, specific weight, which is -1, -1, and the bias is 1. Now, if I change the bias, and remember I used this wording in the previous lecture, right? Each neuron has a bias or threshold such that the neuron activation state greater than the negative threshold will excite the neuron. So now we will see what does it means, this statement. This activation functions, we already prove it correct by hand. Now, if we change the bias, right? We change the bias by increase bias from 1 become 1.5. This discrimination line still can do its job because it still discriminates true from false. I can still work it out. Let's say I increase it to 2. Now, if we put bias 2, and then I put this particular point, -1, right? A1 is 1. Now what I get is -1, 1. But this is already at discrimination line. And at discrimination line, remember the statement, at the discrimination line, the solution of the activation state is become to 0. So this is equal to 0 and it's become to 1, meaning it's not longer works. Because if you put this into this discrimination line, what you get, the activation state equal to 0. And then we get true, which is not right, because this is actually false. So what I want to say here, there are many infinite solutions, and generally the general solution of threshold logic neurons for none is given by this. This is the general solution. There are many bias that can solve none problem and is given by this situation. For any bias from 1 up just until 2. 2 is no longer works. Another homeworks that you can do at home. Prove that the following perceptron, if I have this weight and this bias, I can have un. And you can generalize it for any weight k, and then you find this situation. And you can generalize it even further if you have so many different observation dimension. I have a lot. I have n capital number of input. I have these situations. For your information, I think this problem was in the exam 4 years ago. So it is your homework. Okay? Let's summarize our today lecture. This will be the final slides. So what we have seen, threshold logic neurons based on McCulloch bits. What we have is mapping from real number with dimension n plus 1. The plus 1 refer to the bias, and we map it to another real numbers. Always what we perform is this. We want to get the activation state, and then we apply our threshold logic neuron activation functions, and we get the output. We learn about the discrimination functions, or another word, hyperplane decision surface. So some people call it hyperplane, some people call it discrimination functions, some people call it discrimination lines, depending on the dimension. If it's discrimination lines, it means you only have a line. Surface is used for general because it can be two-dimensional surface, three-dimensional surface, and so on. And the hyperplane decision surface happen at this situation when the output exactly equal to 0, and that's divide the space into two regions. We have the positive region, we have the negative regions. We look at the orientations. The orientation always perpendicular to the hyperplane decision surface, and the orientation is depend on the weight. The position of the hyperplane, remember, we can shift them, and the shift, how far we can tune our discrimination hyperplane by the bias. The distance from the hyperplane to any arbitrary point is proportional to the value of this. That's also what we see, right? The longer it's the further the discrimination plane from any point is proportional to this value. And what we have done today, which is discriminating using single line, is called a linear machine. Any questions? If not, that will be the end of today's lectures. What we have seen today is all linear discrimination. Next week, we will look at nonlinear separation problem, that difficult problem, when the problem is non-convex. Okay? That's it.